So they're picking up sand eels, and I don't know, maybe 18. Welcome back to The Unknown Angler. Today we're going to catch a striper on a sand eel, break a rod, and show you how to tie that same sand eel. There we go. Right there. Right there. Oh, hello. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hello. Let's put him on the reel. That big, but man, they got some fight in them. When you put a bend like that in a 9-weight rod, you got some fight in them. That's not a trout. Nice. There we go. Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh my Lord. Look at the guy that's following him. That's a 3-foot fish following him. Oh my goodness. Oh! No! That's not good. Yeah. Broken rod. That's not good at all. Ouch. Ow. Ouch. Come on, stop it. Well, you wouldn't think that was a rod breaker. It's a 20-incher, but it did. It broke a Helios too. Snapped the tip on the Helios. Damn it. That hurt. See you, bud? Okay, so we're going to go over how I tie a polar flash epoxy baitfish. There's a whole bunch of steps to these. They're short steps, smooth steps, but I tie a lot at the same time. I tie a dozen all at once, mainly because I have a turner that'll tie a dozen at once. Anyway, once again, going to use the hairline material holding for the material holders. The materials we're going to use for this particular fly, and by the way, you can substitute your favorite synthetic materials for tying epoxy baitfish, but I'm going to use polar flash, in this case the pearl. This one is the rainbow. I'm going to use the pearl, the rainbow, and this is the light olive. Doesn't look much like light olive, but it works very well. If you were to measure this out, it's not much more than maybe 1/8 of an inch of material when you compress it down. Fold it over, fold it completely in half. This is going to be the bottom of the baitfish. This is 50% of the baitfish. Cut that in half. And what I mean by 50%, it's 50% the width of the baitfish. So the pearl material is about 50% of it. So that is the thickest part. Cut that in half. We're going to go to the pearl. Now the pearl, we're going to use about half as much material as we used for the Actually, I'm at the end of it here, so I'm going to just cut the shank off. But if you look at that, that is about half as much as the original piece. What you used with the pearl, it'll give you the last 25%. So the full body thickness will be 50% pearl, 25% rainbow, and 25% olive. And if you don't tie it in those proportions, you're never going to catch any fish with them. Sure you will. They'll all catch fish. If you tied them all the same rough diameter, I'm not sure whether you can actually see that in there, but this is about twice as much as this and this combined. So that's kind of where you want to go for that. Easy body. Now this is easy body medium, and this is really easy to do, but in order to get them all the same length, I made a little, on a piece of paper, I wrote down what I want to cut for my 1s, 1/0s, 2s, and 3s. And this is a size 1 hook. By the way, that's pretty good hook gap. These are the new Ahrex hooks. I also use the tarpon hooks on these, the Mustad tarpon hooks. If you look at that body size right there, I'm trying to go 1/4 to 3/8 more past the bend of the hook. This will keep it from doing this and fouling. These will not foul. If you tie them out here, they won't foul. They're not going to bend over the hook. So this is an anti-fouling. Also, it gives you a nice body length for the fly. First things first. So just going to cut the end off here to show you. I'm going to take this, and don't hold the flame on there for more than that. That should do it. Yep. Just want to touch it. Touch it once. Put it on your... Cut it to length. And then touch the other end. And throw it in the bin. Burn this side. Now, we burn both ends when we do this because we're going to make another cut when we assemble the fly. And that other cut is going to go lengthwise, and we don't want the easy body to unravel when we do that. And okay, so we're going to start off with an Ahrex #1 hook. This is not a 1/0, this is #1. These hooks tend to run one size smaller in hook gap. If you were using the Mustad tarpon hooks, even though short shank hooks, the 1/0 is the same sized hook gap. This is a very, very short shanked hook. I like it a lot. This Mustad tarpon hooks work just as well. I'm going to start about an 1/8 inch in back of the eye, actually. So I'm going to use 140 denier ultra thread in white. I'm going to start about an 1/8 inch in back of the eye and wrap back all the way to the hook bend. Once again, if you hold your thread at an angle, it'll make it very easy to make nice consecutive tight wraps down the hook shank. And if you do it right, when you lay your bobbin down, that thread should lay right on top. The thread should lay right on top of the barb of the hook. Anyway, I just even up the ends on the polar flash. I'm going to use the Pearl Polar Flash first, and that's 50% of the body of your fly. 50% meaning it's the diameter in this is twice as big as the next two pieces of Polar Flash you will use. And I'm going to wrap back on that to about halfway down where I just wrapped. Once again, I'm going to clean up the Rainbow Polar Flash, which is the second layer. It's going to go right on top. And once again, make sure you don't tie all the way to the hook eye. I want you to leave a nice area up towards the front of the hook. You'll see what that's for in a second. It'll make all come together in just a second. And last but not least, we're going to use the Olive Polar Flash. I'm trimming all the ends. I know I'm doing it off camera, but I'm trimming all the ends just so they're nice and even when I tie them in. And then I'm going to wrap those forward. Once again, leaving that area around the hook eye nice and open. And now I'm going to take this and I am going to just make a couple of whip finishes. You don't have to worry about locking all of this down too tight. There's going to be so much epoxy on there, this thing will never come apart. It's going to be a bomb-proof fly by the time we're done. Anyway, so we cut all those pieces of Easy Body, and we cut them all to size. And I told you to burn both ends, and the reason is because I didn't want it to come unravel in this next step. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut right up the center on the inside, about halfway up, just one straight line right up there. And the reason for that is because when I push this over the hook, I'm going to push it over, and I'm going to leave that gap that I haven't filled with thread open. I'm going to start my thread again up front, wrap it back, in this case I'm going to wrap it all the way back to there, make sure that slit is on the bottom. Going to push that forward, go loose wrap around, can't see that, but loose wrap around and then pull tight. Unfortunately you couldn't see that, and that's an important step. So push all the way forward, really loose wraps around, and then pull tight. See how that's cinched in there? Beautiful. Now you just want to tie in that head nice and clean now. So this takes a little bit of doing, and you're putting a lot of thread on there, but that's okay. It's really not that much thread because it's a small diameter that you're wrapping it on. But what we're trying to do is just kind of neaten up that area, neaten up the head quite a bit. And when you're done getting a nice neat head, throw a whip finish in there. And for this portion of the fly, you are all done. Cut it off. Now we're going to go on to the next step. We're going to actually take that out of the vise. You can see how that's nice and neat. Now we're going to straighten all of this out in just a second. I'll show you how to do that. So the slit's right here. What we're going to do is just take all this and kind of work it down so it's underneath the slit. And we're going to take our epoxy and we're going to let that drip a little bit. Actually, we're going to let that drip a lot because I don't want a ton in there, but I'm holding that slit together. I'm going to put a little epoxy in there, Okay, and I'm going to hit it with the flashlight, and now it's sealed. Now the other problem you have here is this is not necessarily as straight as you would like it to be, and it's a little curled on the back. So what you do is you put it down on the end. You make sure everything's lined up, everything's nice and straight. Hold it down with your finger. Once again, take that epoxy, let a bunch of it drip off, and then go right in here and put epoxy all around the inside there. Once you do that, you hit that with a flashlight, and that is going to make sure everything goes straight as a board. Really nice there. Now there's one last thing you need to do on this step, and this is kind of important, and you got to be careful doing it. We are going to build an epoxy dam right back here. I'm going to put about a drop or two of epoxy in there and let it soak way into the fly. And the reason to do this is that this particular material will act as a big wick, and it is going to wick up all that epoxy. And when we put it on the rotator later, we want to make sure that there's an epoxy dam right there. There's an epoxy dam right there that won't allow that to wick out into this. And you can see that that's a nice, clean, even. Sorry about the shaky camera here. That's a nice, clean, even epoxy right there. Once I've done that, I want to make sure that I have a nice tapered, a nice tapered area in here. And the way to do that is with some same kind of barber uses, some thinning shears. And by the way, you can buy these for $15 on Amazon. And what this does is it doesn't cut everything all nice and straight off the end, and it makes it real easy for you to cut a nice taper and also let the hair taper back on itself. I use these for a lot of different flies, just not this one. I cut a nice little angle in there. Once you're done with that, you have a nice little tapered end on the fly. None of those are matching up. They all come together. They look like you've feathered them out a little bit. About doing this is getting the eyes on. I pick up the eyes with a bodkin, place them just behind the head, flip the fly over, do the same thing on the other side, pick the fly up, just adjust the eyes so you get them where you want them. By the way, these things, the glue on these eyes is terrible, any of them, no matter which ones you get. And please don't leave any comments about, oh, you can just put a little super glue on there, it'll work just fine. Well, come on over to my house and show me how you do that, because let me tell you, I've tried 1,000 times to use that super glue, and it's crap. It won't work. It doesn't work. Anyway, once you get the eyes in place where you like them, put a little dot of UV epoxy behind, and you want to let that sink right in there. So just let it flow down underneath, and if you need to, take your bodkin without touching the eyes and move them over into the eye area. Make sure everything's all nicely centered, and then hit it with the flashlight. Perfect. Just what the doctor ordered. So heading into the final phase of these epoxy minnows, let's do a little drone footage of the of my fly turner here. I built this myself. This is using alligator clips to hold the flies. I have 12 ready to go to add the epoxy to, and the epoxy I'm using is West Marine epoxy. The 105 epoxy resin, and then the hardener is 207. This is the clearest stuff you can get. This is furniture grade. It's phenomenal stuff. It's way cheaper than the UV epoxy. That system right there will last you, I probably had that 5 years, and I tie hundreds of these, trust me. Also over here I use an epoxy mixer to make sure we don't get too many bubbles in the epoxy when we put it on, and we do 2 thin coats. So we're going to start by mixing the epoxy, and to do a full 12 flies you don't need much. I use a 3-to-1 mix, which is what it's called for. With this particular epoxy, I use a half a tablespoon of each. 3/2 tablespoons to 1/2 tablespoon for the hardener. And that right there will do it. Take that, put it in the mixer. For 1 minute. Actually, it's supposed to be a minute, but I usually let it go for a couple. Yep. Once the mixing's done, I pour it into a little aluminum tray. These are little cupcake trays. The reason is I'm not trying to get anything I can wash here. It's not the most environmentally sound way to do this, but certainly works. Now, there's a few bubbles in that, but we're going to let that sit for about 5 or 6 minutes. This particular epoxy, this West Systems boat epoxy, this is the slow cure stuff. I always use the slow cure stuff. It ends up being like water, as you can probably tell here. It's got a very thin viscosity, and it sets up really nicely, but it takes about 3 hours for it to fully cure. It takes at least 15 minutes before it even starts getting to a semi-hard state, and we don't want to put it on too soon. So it's been a few minutes, and as you can see, most of the bubbles are out of there. Don't have to worry about all the bubbles coming out, because this first coat is a coat that's going to really sink in. And what we're going to do is just paint this right on. And do not overdo it. We're going to do 2 coats on this, 2 thin coats. Do not take this and coat it because you want to do 1 coat and make everything work. That is not going to work. Trust me. Yeah, I keep saying trust me. You don't have to trust me. Go ahead and try it yourself. 2 coats work better than slopping this with a ton of epoxy. Get it on your turner and set her in action. Now you know why I like the alligator clips. They work great. Whenever you coat thread up around the head of the fly, do not get it on the eye of the fly. You coat the eyes, not the eye. The eye being what you're going to put your tippet through. If you coat the eye, you'll never get it out of there. Whoop. Okay, so here we go. We can do the second coat. And the second coat is very, very thin. And usually I let the epoxy thicken a little bit more than I do for the first coat. So I put a timer on this epoxy. I mix for 2 minutes, and then I will let sit for approximately 5. So that's a total of 7 minutes when you're using a stopwatch. I put the stopwatch on the phone. And like I said, this is not a, hey, load it on till it drips. Epoxy. This isn't loaded on till it drips. This is definitely a light coat. Yeah, we're gonna get some drone footage of the rotator here. Hey, thanks for watching.